My name is Paige and I am chair of Cascadia Rail. Cascadia Rail is a nonprofit advocacy organization that's dedicated to bringing high-speed rail to the Pacific Northwest. We were founded in 2018 by a group of advocates that were previously involved with the Sound Transit 3 light rail expansion. From there, we grew to have chapters in 4 cities, including right here in Vancouver. Our members wrote letters to legislators in support of high-speed rail, sent over 500 letters to those legislators, which then motivated them to pass the funding for the next steps of the project, which is setting up a governance structure to bring this into fruition. One of the reasons why we decided to start Cascadia Rail was because of the growth that is happening in the Pacific Northwest. Over the next 20 years, our region is expected to grow by 30%. That's like adding another 4 cities the size of Vancouver. In the next 10 years, over 200,000 jobs are coming to Vancouver. About a quarter of those are going to be in the tech industry and need to be filled by 2021. Local talent is not enough to supply this source, so we're looking at having about 30,000 newcomers to the city. Seattle has already experienced this growth. In the past decade, it was the fastest growing city in the US with about 18% population increase. When we're looking at downtown developments, out of all of the developments that occurred in downtowns across the states, over 20% of that development happened right in downtown Seattle. I'll say that again. Over 20% of all of the downtown developments out of the entire country happened in Seattle. That's huge. And with all of that growth came issues with commutes. So even though Seattle has a robust public transportation system, we still have 65% of the region's carbon emissions coming from transportation. The I-5 corridor is routinely congested, with Seattleites spending up to 55 hours stuck in traffic every year. Now, if you live in Tacoma or Everett, which are our neighborhoods to the north and south, you're looking at commutes of one way of about 90 minutes each day if you're coming into Seattle. That adds up to an extra month of time every year spent in traffic. What would you do with an extra month of your time? How many people flew here to get here? About half the crowd. How many people took the train? About a quarter of the crowd. That's my, from Let me rephrase. How many people took Amtrak here? Okay, pretty close. You're all my kind of people. I took the Amtrak up as well, and I was riding with Jason too, so he was on board with us. There are over 30 flights per day between Seattle and Vancouver, and 30 flights per day between Seattle and Portland. I'm going to give you a fun fact. Our cities are so close together that before you even leave SeaTac Airport, you're in the landing pattern for Vancouver. Now, with these regional flights, most of the fuel is used in the takeoff. So if you're not going very far, you're not having a very efficient trip. A flight between Seattle and Vancouver is 2.6 times less efficient per passenger mile than flying between Montreal and Miami. The greenhouse emissions from each one of those flights between Seattle and Vancouver is equal to that if you were to drive from here to Boston and back again, every single flight. Now, if only there was some kind of mode that we could invest in as an alternate to air travel. Enter high-speed rail. Cascadia Rail is advocating for 1 hour or less connections between Vancouver and Seattle, and 1 hour or less connections between Seattle and Portland. We also have a future vision of faster than driving to get to Spokane. But today we're going to focus on that Vancouver-Seattle-Portland corridor. Now, we talked about our friends in Everett and Tacoma that are having those 90-minute commutes. With high-speed rail, those commutes could be reduced to 15 minutes or less. That's life-changing. That's an extra month of your time back for those folks. Now, you might be thinking, airports are going to lose business to this. How are people feeling the work of the airports about high-speed rail? And elsewhere in the world, folks are embracing it. They see high-speed rail as the 4th runway. Now, how this helps is it opens up more gates for those transcontinental flights or those international flights, which are bringing in better revenue, and also frees up more runway space as well. So if we're able to move passengers onto a more sustainable mode that still gets them there in a competitive time, it's great for business, great for the environment, and great for people. One of the places that's exploring getting rid of regional air travel altogether is Germany. How many people heard about this in the past month? This article came out. So Germany is looking at doing away with regional air travel and having those passengers take the train inside their country and only having flights that operate outside of the country. And we got a lot of questions about that from our community saying, well, how is that possible? How can you get rid of air travel with an entire country? And when you look at the size of Germany, this is a 2-scale picture over the states. It's actually around the same size as Cascadia. Journeys that are within 600 miles or less can be time competitive with high-speed rail. And we're also looking at costs. That's another great question, is how much is this going to cost? And the high-speed rail study said that this is going to cost us about 24 to 42 billion for the route between Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland. To put that in perspective, it costs over $100 billion to add just one lane on I-5, and it costs $10 billion to add a single runway to one airport. So when you put that into perspective, we're actually getting our best bang for the buck with high-speed rail. Now, I would not be doing my due diligence as an American if I didn't come talk to you all about borders and walls. And that's actually one of the most frequently asked questions that we have is, isn't the border crossing going to slow down high-speed rail? And we don't think that it is. So we timed it. Amtrak currently crosses the border and has customs checks. So what happens is people will come on the train, the agents will come on the train, check credentials, and then deboard. And this process takes about 10 minutes or so. So it's pretty quick. In other countries, such as Hungary and Austria, in Hungary, the agents will board, check credentials, why the train is moving, and then when it crosses over to that first stop in Austria, they'll deboard and then go back in the reverse direction. Another place that is navigating different borders is the Baltics. So in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, they're building a high-speed rail line that's going to connect into Portland. To navigate those boundaries, they formed a third-party entity called Railvolution. And Railvolution oversees the needs of each of those countries and each of those jurisdictions while still maintaining a high-quality rail project. What could we learn from Railvolution that we could apply to governance here in the States and in Canada? Travel is going to happen. How can we do it better? It's not, do we build high-speed rail or build nothing? It's, do we build high-speed rail or do we build this? Thank you.